Welcome back to Jessica's Craft Time. My name's Jessica, and today we're starting with one of our miniature rooms. This is a chocolate shop. Yay, who doesn't love chocolate? So I've just pulled everything out of the box. This one's kind of cool because it comes with a little toolkit as well, and I'm getting stuck into our papers. We've got a separate inventory sheet here, which is kind of handy. Instead of being in the front of the instruction book, which means you have to flick backwards and forwards, you can have it separate and double check. So we're just following our instructions here and making a cabinet. What's great with this instruction book is each piece is labelled, but on the inventory sheet it tells you what size the pieces are. So when you tip out a bag full of white rectangles, you'll be able to work out which piece you're meant to be using where. I've also started to lay them in the same way that my instruction sheet is. And the reason I do that is because then I find it easier when I need to find a piece. It's laid out the same way, so I don't have to remeasure my pieces and work out which piece is which again. It's all laid out like the picture in the instruction book. So it's just a matter, I find for each step, I go through and find all the pieces that I need, get them out, cut them out, and then I start building. We need a couple of little bits of wire here, so I just checked my instruction sheet just to make sure. One of the houses that I did last time, I used too much of one of the widths of wire, so when it came to the end I didn't have the right width that I needed. So I just wanted to make sure I was cutting up the right piece. But yet again, your inventory sheet has exactly how big the piece should be. This one had two bits of wire. One was like 50 centimeters long and one was just 10 centimeters or something, so it was easy to work out which one was which. I'm just using my tacky glue, and I always suggest that you get a baby wipe out as well. You'll end up with glue on your bench, on your fingers. Who knows? I end up with glue everywhere. So I find a baby wipe is really handy just to have there. This piece we needed to divide into three with a pencil, and that meant that we could just make it more even when it came to putting the shelves in. Just gave a little bit of a guide to where the shelves should actually sit on the piece instead of going, oh, I'm not sure, let's just randomly put them wherever they are. So yeah, the tacky glue that I'm using to glue all the wood together is very similar to PVA glue or wood glue, but it's a bit thicker. And for the miniatures it works really well because it means that it actually holds it a little bit. It still does move around, so you've got time to move. But I'd recommend if you're building one of the bits of furniture to build it all in one go, because quite often you have to slot pieces in and you need to move them and adjust them. So the wood glue is good in the fact that it will hold the pieces, but it also gives you a little bit of wiggle room. Now, our diamond painting trays, who's got heaps of these green boats laying around, or whatever colour or shape you've got? They're great for holding all your little bits and pieces, and I've used them here to shove in the back of the cupboard to hold it up. This one I worked out my shelves were in the wrong position, so I just flipped it round. I wanted the shelves to sit on the backboard of the piece so that one, they stuck a bit firmer, and two, they were all recessed at the same height. So yeah, I do recommend that you put the whole piece of furniture together while your glue is still wet, and this will just give you time to adjust and wiggle. If you're like me, don't adjust too much, just be happy with what you have, because the more that you touch it, the more it will fall apart on you. So I'm just reading my instructions and working out what I need to do, and these are just a couple of doors going in. So all the empty spaces will be filled with bits and pieces that we create, but then we just cover a couple, and that's what the metal was for. I love using these like cupcake holders to pour my glue in. I use them for quite a few sessions, and then once they get a bit clogged with glue, I throw them out and get a new one. And that's our little cabinet made. So I just made sure it stood up straight too. Now, for being a chocolate shop, there's lots of little boxes and gift boxes and heaps and heaps of little paper things that you got to cut out. As you can see by the instructions, there's just heaps of them. So I'm just reading this one. They did have the symbol, the codes back the front. So it took me a bit to work out. I suggest a sharp pair of paper scissors to do these. Something with a fine tip's always really good, but you need a sharp pair. You're getting into lots of little grooves, and I find it best to cut out both your pieces. Well, I like to do things in steps, so I like to cut them all out, get rid of my rubbish, and then start working out how they go together. All the boxes go together very, very similarly. They just might have different tabs that need gluing, but they're all very similar in the way that they are constructed and the way that they go together. They'll all have some form of tab that needs glue on it, and that's what sort of holds the whole thing together. Now I use here, this is my picker tool by Stampin' Up. Basically, it's just a sharp point. So I go through and actually score all the lines of where all the folds are. I do recommend that you're gentle with this. Don't score too deep or you'll cut through your paper, or you'll end up with big gaps in it. You know, you'll cut certain sections. With my paper things like this, I love using my tear and tape, which is basically like a double-sided tape. I do normally have to cut it in half because the little tabs that you need are quite small. And I always recommend folding your piece first to see how it goes together. Don't pull all your glue off it, all your backing tape of your double-sided tape off at once either. Only pull off the section that you're gluing and then pull off the second section. I also find it easier with a ruler. I use a metal ruler so I can't cut it. Just to give your score lines a nice straight edge. So this is like a counter box of chocolate bars. It's a little display that the chocolate bars go in. Your tweezers are also really good at getting into the little areas to help stick them down. Now these are all the chocolate bars that go into them. So we've got 5 of them to cut out. With this video, the last miniature room I didn't actually do all this prep work on camera. I did it off camera. But I thought it would be interesting to do it on camera this time. So this whole section took me about an hour to create. All the little bits, from finding all the bits you need, cutting them out, and actually putting them together. This video is not an hour long though. I fast forwarded it because, you know, it's not that exciting watching me cut the same thing out 5 times. Yeah, so it took me about an hour. I think this room will probably take me about 9 or 10 hours. I haven't had a full look at the instructions. But all up, by the time you cut all the little bits out, there's going to be lots of little fiddly bits in this room. It's not my favourite part. My favourite part is building the furniture. But this is just the nitty gritty little bits. But this cupboard, once it's finally finished, is going to look cool with all these little bits in it. And it does actually have the words chocolate on the box, on the little bars. So I like to cut them all out and then clear away my rubbish and score. When I'm doing something like 5 boxes, I always do one first, see where I need to put the tape on it. Now this one has really tiny, tiny little flaps, and to try and cut the double-sided tape like that, it's very, very tiny. So what I did is actually put a bit of tape along the whole back flap and then just maneuvered all the bits in and glued it down. I was lucky that the back flap was almost exactly the same width as my double-sided tape. And then they just sit in the little boxes it created before. So yeah, I'm just going through, scoring, and gluing. So yeah, definitely this one was, instead of on all those little tabs, just one long bit. It doesn't matter if there's extra tape that hasn't adhered, it's all inside the little box you're making. So if you don't actually use it all, you don't use it all, but saves fiddly. And then I'm just putting a little bit of tape on the bottom of each box to glue them into the display box. The reason I do this is because one of the first rooms I did, I put the cover on it, and the clear cover was stuck onto the actual framework of the room. And when I moved it, there was a couple of items, I think they were cushions on a bed or something, that fell off the bed. I'm like, well, how do I get in there to do it? How do I get in to fix it? So I managed to get the cover apart, get in, glue them down, make sure nothing else was going to move, and then put the cover back on. I do recommend that you get a clear cover with them. Quite often there's the option to add a cover, and I do recommend doing it. Excuse me. They've got lots of tiny little bits and pieces in, and who's going to want to try and get in there and dust it? At least if you've got a cover on it, you can just wipe the dust off the cover, and you know that everything inside's not getting dusty. My favourite covers have been ones that are removable, so that they glue along like 3 sides, and it just slips over your room. It's not actually glued onto the room. I do have both, and I have made my own covers on some as well. Especially with some of the first ones that I made, because I didn't understand this when I first made them. Excuse me there. So we're just getting to the last little one here, and we're going to pop them all in the little box, and you've got them there, our little chocolate display boxes. Now we're doing some other little boxes. These ones are 2 of the same. So you just cut them out of your sheet. Try when you're cutting not to go around a corner in the little, like when you've got a tight little corner, it's better to come in from both sides. Excuse me. It's better to come in from both sides rather than trying to turn your scissors in the little corner. You'll get a much cleaner cut than if you turn it like I just did then. So this one was quite simple, just scored it. And I scored both of them. And always just give it a bit of a fold and see how it goes together, and then you'll work out where you need to put your glue on these. So this one worked very similar to the last chocolate box, that I just put one long bit of tape along the fold that folds over, hold all your little tabs in, and then adhere it down. Those little tiny tabs that you meant to put the glue on, they're just so tiny that it's too fiddly. It doesn't matter. No one's going to know that there's double-sided tape on the inside. And now we're up to our last project, and these are like little ice cream tubs. Now, what I should have done when I cut out the circles for the lid, what I should have done before I cut them out was put double-sided adhesive on the back of the circle. So when I cut the circle out, I'm cutting the tape behind it as well, and that way I would have got a cleaner circle than what I ended up doing. So these are just winding round, put a little bit of tape on the edge, and I did actually notice by the time I picked it up that second time, that it did have a dotted line where it was meant to go, and it is meant to be more of a cone, but the first one I kind of just missed the angles when I taped it down, but it doesn't matter. You're really not going to notice. So here you can see I put the tape on the back and then had to trim the tape. Would have been much easier if I had to put the tape on the front. And then you just tape the top on, and we're done for today. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you like my videos, please think about giving me a thumbs up and hitting the subscribe button. We do have more of our miniature rooms coming up. This is only episode 1 of the chocolate room. And there you go. There's all our little bits and pieces that we've created, and our little cupboard, which they'll all go into eventually. So I hope you enjoyed my video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care for now. Bye.